Hello, my name is Elizabeth and I am with the Indiana State Poultry Association. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to go over some basics on getting started with the backyard chicken flock. Before we get started on how to care for your birds, you first need to decide what kind of birds you're looking for. What is the purpose of your flock? Are you looking to raise birds for meat? If so, Cornish Cross are an excellent choice. They are a mix between white Cornish and white Plymouth Rocks. These birds can reach 4 to 5 pounds in 6 weeks and 6 to 10 pounds in 8 to 12 weeks. These are the meat production birds you will see at the county or state fair. What about egg-laying breeds? All chickens will lay eggs, but some breeds produce more than others. White Leghorns are the largest egg-producing breed. Golden Comets and red sex-links are also good egg layers that lay brown eggs. If you look at the color of the earlobes, which are located under the chicken's ear on the side of their head, you can determine what color egg they will lay. A chicken with red earlobes will lay brown eggs, and white earlobe chickens will lay white eggs. While some people might prefer brown eggs over white, it's important to note that the color does not reflect the nutrition of the egg. If your birds are cared for properly, a white egg will give you the same 6 grams of protein that a brown egg will give you. So what if you want eggs and meat? These birds are called dual purpose because they are good egg layers and large enough for meat production as well. However, they won't grow as quickly as the Cornish Cross. Plymouth Rocks, Sussex, and Wyandottes are a few of those breeds that can be raised for eggs and then processed for meat later. Next we have exhibition birds. These might be referred to as fancy breeds. The American Poultry Association publishes a book called The American Standard of Perfection. It has all of the recognized breeds that can be exhibited at youth and open shows. It also gives descriptions and pictures of the breed standards so you know exactly what to look for in that breed. For shows, the birds will be classified as large fowl, which are larger breeds, or bantams, which are the smaller breeds. And then they're broken down into classes and then by breed. Each breed may come in a variety of colors or varieties. Then they will be broken down to be judged by their sex and their age. There are hundreds of breeds to choose from, so before selecting a breed, do some research and find which one or ones will be perfect for your flock. For instance, the Polish pictured on the left will require a decent amount of grooming to get the hat that clean and neat. So now that you decided what birds you want for your flock, where should you get them? If you're looking for birds for meat production or egg layers, you can simply get them from a feed store during their chick days or a local hatchery. There are also hatcheries that can ship chicks via the U.S. Postal Service. If you go this route, be sure you are available to pick them up from the post office as soon as they arrive and have their pen ready for move-in, which we will talk about later. If you are looking for an exhibition birds that you plan to show, you might want to consider contacting a breeder or find one at an open poultry show. These birds will be closer to their breed standard and can compete better. When buying your chicks or chickens, you can get them from a National Poultry Improvement Plan certified flock. The NPIP program was created in 1935 by the USDA. It was originally created to eliminate pullorum disease, but now the program tests and monitors for a variety of other diseases as well. Hatcheries and even breeders can become NPIP certified by following a number of standards and having regular testing done. Buying from an NPIP certified flock will improve your flock's health and decrease the spread of disease. So now I'm going to cover how to hatch your own chicks. Chicken eggs will take 21 days to hatch, and ducks will take 28 to 35 days, depending on the breed. The first thing to do will be to collect fertile eggs, of course. You typically want one rooster per 10 or so hens to be sure the job is getting done. Be aware that eggs from the store will not be fertile as these hens are not housed with males. When collecting the eggs, you can store them in an area between 55 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 7 days. You'll want to do this so that you can incubate the eggs in groups of at least 6. This will allow chicks to hatch together. Now, how to get these eggs to hatch. You're going to need to purchase an incubator. These can be bought online, at a feed store, or a poultry supply store. There will most likely be a wide range of sizes and features to choose from. The top picture shows an incubator that would be found on a large production farm. The smaller styrofoam one is the one you might need for a small flock. But like I said, there are other sizes too if you're hoping to hatch more chicks at a faster rate. A couple features to look for when selecting an incubator are automatic egg turners and a fan to distribute the heat. After you bring your incubator home, find a room to set it up in. You'll want a room temperature room that is free from drafts, so try to find a room with little foot traffic. In between hatches, be sure that the incubator is disinfected and cleaned thoroughly. The internal temperature of the incubator ranges from 99 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, with the optimum temperature at 100.5 degrees. Be sure that this temperature is reached and kept steady before placing eggs. This temperature will be imperative for proper development of the chick and successful hatching. The humidity is also important. Depending on the stage, the humidity will vary. From days 1 to 17, it should be at 50 to 55%, and from day 18 to hatching, it should be 70%. So now that you have your eggs in the incubator, now what? Be sure to monitor the temperature and the humidity. The incubator will include a water source that will need to be filled, so be sure to fill that as needed. In order to keep heat in, minimize the number of times the incubator is opened. It shouldn't need to be opened more than a couple times a day unless you need to manually turn the eggs, which needs done at least 3 times a day. As mentioned earlier, a lot of incubators will come with automatic turners, so you don't need to worry about it. Turning the eggs will help the chick to develop properly and not get stuck to one side of the egg. Between days 7 and 10, you can candle your eggs to see if there is a chick developing. This can be done by turning off the lights so the room is completely dark and using a flashlight to shine into the egg. Be sure not to keep eggs out for more than 5 minutes. You can see in the diagram examples of what you might see in the egg. If the egg is clear, the embryo either didn't develop or it was infertile. This egg can be discarded. If you see a solid red line like the third egg from the left, the embryo died and this egg can be discarded as well. If you have a broken or leaking egg, discard it. At this stage in development, you should be able to see the embryo like pictured in the far left. There will be multiple blood vessels, a dark area, and maybe even some movement. This egg is fertile. It's almost day 21. Prepare the brooder. A brooder is simply the pen that the chicks will live in while they are still small. So typically the chick will hatch on day 21, but it may take a few extra days, so don't discard the egg right away on day 22. Once the chicks start hatching, let them get out on their own. This may take a few hours or even a whole day. Once he starts hatching, he'll begin peeping to alert the other chicks it's time to hatch. After the chick hatches, let him stay in the incubator for a couple hours to dry off. So what does a brooder consist of? The brooder should be set up in a room of about 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit and free of drafts. A heat lamp should be secured 20 inches above the litter. The heat lamp should provide an area that is 95 degrees Fahrenheit for the chicks. Each week, the temperature can drop 5 degrees until 70 degrees is reached. This is a diagram of how you can tell how the chicks are feeling. They will let you know what they need, but you have to know what their signs mean. Huddling under the heat source means that you need to increase the temperature or provide another heat source. If they are all spread out and panting, drop the temperature a bit. The brooder should contain plenty of absorbent bedding. If you notice any wet areas, remove them immediately to reduce the possibility of the birds getting sick. As with any animal, chicks need access to fresh, clean water. The waterer like the one pictured is a good product for chicks so that they won't drown. If the waterer is too large, try placing some clean rocks in the bottom that are large enough the chick won't try to eat it and they cannot drown. When placing the chicks in the brooder, you can dip their beaks in the water so they can find the water source, and you can rest assured knowing they at least got a small drink. You'll have to get a special feed for chicks that includes at least 18% protein, as well as amino acids, pre and probiotics, yeast, and vitamins and minerals. Feed mills and animal nutritionists will provide feed mixes that ensure your birds will grow healthy and get everything they need. Just be sure to read feed labels and ingredient tags. You can start off by feeding chicks in a shallow dish or even an old lid from a yogurt or cottage cheese container. This will allow them to scratch and find their feed easier. Then transition them to a feeder like the one pictured as they get a little bit bigger. These are examples of what a brooder might look like. You can see the one on the left has multiple heat lamps, which might be necessary depending on the number of the birds, the temperature, and the size of the brooder. You'll notice the one on the right is made from a large storage tote, which will work just as well. However, be sure to place a wire top over it to keep the chicks in and other critters out. You would be surprised on how easily chicks can find their way out. In this particular example, the chicks appear to be cold since they're huddling together. The caretaker could add another heat lamp to the other end, or after placing a wire top on, they could drape a blanket or towel over the end without the heat lamp. This would help to keep the heat in. However, be sure this would not be a fire hazard. These are a couple more examples of homemade brooders. The one on the left has a wire top like I mentioned. The one on the right has a thermometer to ensure the temperature is warm enough for the chicks. This must be a deluxe brooder. As the chicks get bigger, you can move them to a larger brooder like this to ensure they have enough space. But don't worry, your chicks aren't going to mind how fancy their brooder is. As long as it is safe, warm, and they are receiving their nutrients, they will be happy. Next, we will talk about housing for your backyard flock. Depending on the weather, chicks can be moved to the outside coop at 6 weeks. You might be wondering about the Cornish Cross meat birds that we talked about being ready for market at 6 weeks. These birds will definitely outgrow their brooder by then, so they can be moved earlier as long as the weather is warm enough. Typically, you will get these birds during the summer months, so the weather should cooperate. Some things to keep in mind when building or buying a coop are space, protection, enrichments, air, light, and how to protect from predators. Each bird should have at least 3 square feet of space. If you have exhibition birds, you might consider building individual pens. This will keep their feathers in better condition and will keep them considerably cleaner. If you have a flock, just allow that they have room to move around in. You might allow an outside run as well, but make sure that the birds have enough room inside if they can't go outside. They should have protection from rain, wind, snow, and direct sunlight, especially in the summer. Having some type of enrichment for your birds will help to reduce cannibalism. This could include wood shavings to scratch in or dust bathe, roosts, or an outdoor run. Chickens secrete ammonia in their feces, which can be harmful to the bird's health as well as your health. This is why ventilation is important when designing a coop. The more birds you have, the more ventilation is needed. Leaving a window open or having a ceiling fan will help prevent this issue. Keeping the coop clean will also limit the amount of ammonia. It's also important for the birds to get plenty of light inside their coop, especially laying hens. Their laying cycles depend on the amount of light they receive. You'll notice in the summer months they lay more frequently. As the days get shorter, they receive less light and their body will take a break from laying to molt. They will direct their energy to growing new feathers in preparation for cold weather. However, to keep the hens laying, provide artificial light in their coop. They will lay at full production with about 16 hours of light a day. Lastly, keep predators out. Be sure the coop is fully enclosed. Small wire will also be beneficial as small critters such as weasels can get into larger wire. Providing a floor in the outside run will also keep dogs and such from digging in. Here are a couple examples of coops. Be aware of which way you face the coop, as you want them to get some sun, but not the hot afternoon sun unless they can also find shade outdoors. A lot of coops will have nest boxes, like this one, which can be accessed from the outside. Nest boxes should be kept clean and full of bedding. Some birds might become broody or sit on the eggs to hatch them. Some birds also might try to eat their eggs. If this becomes a problem, you can place false eggs or round rocks in the nesting boxes. The chicken will then peck at the rock and realize that she isn't getting anything out of it. Hopefully this will do the trick. Here are some examples of individual pens for exhibition birds. Next, we will briefly cover nutrition. There is so much information on this topic that could be covered, but I'll just go over the basics. What you feed your birds will depend on a lot of things. Meat production birds are going to need more protein as they are growing faster. Layers are producing eggs and will need extra calcium. Exhibition birds are basically just maintaining themselves, although they will still lay eggs and need calcium too. Birds will eat more in the winter months to produce more body heat. Growing birds will also need a very different diet than mature birds. Mashed feeds might be cheaper, but more food will be wasted and you can't ensure the birds are getting all the nutrients that are provided in the ration. You also have the option for medicated feeds, specifically to prevent coccidiosis, which is an internal parasite birds can get from being raised on the ground. Like any medication, it is important to read the label to see about withdrawal times for market animals as well as egg layers. So what feed should you feed your birds and what ingredients are most important? Well, the best thing to do would be to read feed tags and talk to your local feed store. Companies will premix feeds based on the age and purpose of your bird, so do your research and read feed labels first. Lastly, I will cover biosecurity as it is a critical responsibility of flock ownership. The USDA created a program called Defend the Flock, which is a set of biosecurity guidelines that help to prevent the spread of disease. Step 1. Keep your distance. This means that you should limit the number of visitors that you have visit your flock, as well as keep wild birds and other animals away from your birds as much as possible. Step 2. Keep it clean. Footwear, clothes, equipment, tools, the coop, and your hands should always be kept clean. Step 3. Don't haul disease home. When going to or returning from the feed store, an exhibition, show, or another flock, be sure that vehicle tires and equipment are thoroughly cleaned. Returning birds, such as from the fair, should be kept in a separate coop for at least 2 weeks, and new birds for at least 30 days. This will keep any possible disease contained to that area. Step 4. Don't borrow disease from your neighbor. You should never share tools or carrying boxes as disease can travel this way. Wooden crates and cardboard egg cartons cannot be disinfected properly, so these should be avoided altogether. Step 5. Be aware of the warning signs of infectious disease. The quicker disease is detected, the quicker that it can be controlled. Keep an eye on your flock and know what symptoms of disease are. Common symptoms include loss of appetite, sneezing, gasping for air, purple discoloration of wattles, combs, and legs. The final step is to report sick birds. This can be to your local vet, the Purdue Animal Disease Diagnostics Lab, your Purdue Extension agent, or the biosecurity hotline. They will direct you in the direction of what steps to take next. So now what? There are so many resources available to give you more information on specifics of flock care. Our website at inpoultry.com has some links for you to check out. Thank you.